What is up, guys? EJ here, aka PuckBond007, and welcome to the Movie Reviewers 100, this great collaboration channel on YouTube that I'm proud to be a part of. So this week is Journey Movie Week, cool week, and the film I decided to go with for this week is the 2007 film Into the Wild. It's based on the book by John Krakauer. The film was directed by a known actor, Sean Penn, who also wrote the screenplay. Sean Penn, prior to this, of course, has had an amazing acting career, but he has directed films before this. I believe his first movie was The Indian Runner in 1991. He did The Crossing Guard in 1995 with Jack Nicholson. And 2001, he did The Pledge, also with Jack Nicholson. The Pledge I have seen as well. I don't remember liking it too much, but I don't really remember much about it. Sort of a crime thriller about a detective, I believe, investigating the murder of a young girl, from what I remember. Really good cast. Looking it up on IMDb, but I don't think I loved the film. Yeah, and Jack Nicholson also stars in The Pledge. So, Into the Wild, one of my favorite movies of the past decade. My second favorite film of 2007, of course, a true story about a young man played by Emil Hirsch, Christopher Jonathan McCandless, after graduating from Emory College, decides to hitchhike across America and go live in the Alaskan wilderness, and he disappears for 2 years from his family. The reason he does this is he's basically sort of fed up with the whole construct of general society and the whole idea of getting a career and a job. He basically gives up everything to go do this, to live off the land, become completely self-sufficient, and he basically seeks total freedom. Yeah, he gives up a promising career. There's talk of him going to law school at his sort of graduation dinner with his parents and his sister. But he just ups and leaves, sort of drives halfway across, dumps his car in Arizona, and then makes his way up to Alaska. His parents are played by William Hurt and Marcia Gay Harden, two great actors in their own right. And his sister is played by Jenna Malone, which is one of my favorite. She's one of my favorite characters in this movie. It's obvious that Chris and I believe her character's name is, let me look it up, Kareen, are very close. And she does a lot of narration during the movie and talks about Chris and his feelings, why he's doing this. And there's obviously a very close bond between the two of them, and that sort of resonated with me when I first saw this, because I'm very close to my sister. She's a big part of my life, and because of that, this film really sort of gets to me. I'm not gonna lie. It's a heartbreaking film on many levels, and it's a great film. So yeah, he basically cuts up his credit cards, his identity, his social security, throws them all away, throws away all his money. He actually burns his money at one point, and he heads out on the road. But the film isn't just about him in the wilderness alone in Alaska. It's more about the people he meets along the way. And along the way he meets a variety of people. At one point he's in South Dakota, working for a sort of a wheat farmer, played by Vince Vaughn, interestingly enough. So there's some good scenes there. Sort of a different role for Vince Vaughn. He also meets a couple of what they quote rubber tramps. He's known as a foot tramp, basically, because he's walking. But these two hippies, rubber tramps, are driving around in their sort of psychedelic-looking RV. And they're played by the great Catherine Keener and an actor who I'm not familiar with, Brian Durker. So he meets them along the way, and they sort of strike up a conversation. And he eventually meets up with them later on in this place in California called Slab City. An interesting sort of place where various RVs convene, and it's an abandoned military base. And he meets up with them and connects with them again. There, he also meets a young girl, a young singer, played by Twilight's Kristen Stewart. Now, I'm obviously not a Kristen Stewart fan, but I like her in this. She's not in it that long, and I find it interesting that she looks very similar to Jenna Malone, who plays this sister, and there's sort of a connection there when he meets this girl. I don't think it's a coincidence that they sort of connect, and they kind of look alike. Um, but I'm not gonna throw any sort of sexual connotations on that, even though she does sort of throw himself at her. She's only 16 and he's just graduated college, so I believe he says he's 23 at some point. He also meets a kind old man played by Hal Holbrook. He basically is, I think he's one of the last people he sees before he gets driven up to Alaska, before he sort of hops on trains up to Alaska. Hal Holbrook, sort of a crusty old man, a veteran, a widow, lost his wife and child in the car crash back in the 50s. And they have a good connection as well out in the desert, California desert. And Hal sort of sees where Chris is heading. He doesn't really agree with what he's doing, but he sort of gets turned on to Chris's philosophy and sort of grabbing life by the balls, if you like. And he actually tries to adopt Chris before he goes up to Alaska. I get the feeling that Holbrook's character has a feeling he'll never see him again, and there's a great shot of them when they leave. When he leaves him, you see a tear run down Holbrook's face after he asks to adopt him, and he takes off right after that. So yeah, it's about these people he meets along the way, and then when he finally gets to Alaska, he's out in the wilderness trying to cut it. He runs into this sort of abandoned bus. It's an old like Alaskan tour bus. He sort of makes his home in the bus. He eats berries. He kills like little rodents and vermin with a rifle. At one point he goes to great lengths to kill a moose and cut it up so he can save the meat. He actually runs into a guy back in South Dakota who tells him, this is what you gotta do so that flies don't descend on the rotting corpse and maggots form, because once that happens, the meat is rancid and gone. And he doesn't get all this done in time when he kills the moose. He's trying to cut it up and save it and store it and get it all done before all the flies come, and then all the scavengers come, like wolves and hawks and birds and stuff, to sort of tear away the rotting flesh. That's a really good scene. So yeah, he makes his life up in Alaska around this bus, just doing what he wants. He climbs mountains. Like I said, he picks berries and shrubberies. He has a couple books telling him what berries he can eat without getting poisoned and so on. But the film isn't that linear. It's not like it starts off at the beginning and we see all these events with these people. It's interspersed throughout. There's scenes of him in Alaska, and then a scene of him on the road with one of the groups or persons he meets along the way, and it really breaks up the film really nicely. I know a lot of people compared it with Castaway when it came out, which I can see why, because there's a lot of solitary moments, solitary scenes when he's up in Alaska by himself. But it's not like one big half of the film where he's by himself. It's broken up really nicely. That you always know where he's going. That's his ultimate goal, is Alaska, but it's not one sort of great long piece of film with him by himself, which keeps the movie interesting, keeps it fresh, and very entertaining at parts. and it's just a really great film. I have tremendous respect for people who would even consider doing this. I mean, this took place in 1990 to 1992. For a guy to give up all material possessions, his family life, and meanwhile, while this is going on, the family sort of descends. It wasn't a great dynamic to begin with, especially the parents. It's very obvious through the narration that there's something very wrong with his parents and his childhood and the way he and his sister have been raised. Um, but to give all that up and go live on the wild, completely penniless, takes a lot of guts, and it's my opinion that we've sort of given up on nature as a whole. I mean, here we are 20 years later, and look where society is now. I mean, I can imagine somebody doing this now. Obviously, there are sort of people who live in the backwoods, etc., and they're third world countries, obviously not as advanced as the U.S. But for someone to do this, and like when I first saw this and I heard people talk about it, a lot of people said, "Why on earth would you give all that up to go do that?" And I thought I sort of just laughed at them, to be honest. Um, there's a lot I find it really admirable that this character would do this. Emil Hirsch is amazing in this film. He's a very good actor. I've always liked him in some things like Alpha Dog, the Lords of Dogtown, skateboarding movie. Trying to think what else he's been in. Lots of really good films in the past 10 years, but this is the highlight for me. Yeah, it's just a brilliant performance, and the way his body changes towards the end. I mean, he basically, unfortunately, dies of starvation. At one point, he does eat one of the poisonous berries that he's not supposed to, and this sort of sucks all his energy, drains his appetite, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really heartbreaking at the end. You see, he's very emaciated. His face is all pale, just skinny as you know what. It's an amazing, stunning transformation for Emil Hirsch. Like I said, I really like Jenna Malone as well. The sister dynamic, and she narrates a big portion of the film. I like Catherine Keener a lot. I've always liked Catherine Keener. She's a great actress. She has some really nice moments. And even, like I said, William Hurt, Marcia Gay Harden are great actors, and Vince Vaughn, very cool as well. Hal Holbrook was really good as well. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink because, like I said, last week just got off work. Really hot here in San Jose. And I want to make sure I mention everything I wanted to talk about this film. And I can't go on without not mentioning the music. Of course, the bulk of the soundtrack, the songs were contributed by Eddie Vedder, lead singer of Pearl Jam, of course. Pearl Jam is one of my favorite all-time bands. They were sort of at their height during my high school years, during that whole grunge period. 92 to 95 was when they were really fucking huge. They're still a great band, one of the best touring bands that is still around. But of course, it's not Pearl Jam that's doing the songs, it's Eddie Vedder playing his ukulele. But the songs are great. Society is a great song. All the music that Eddie Vedder does for this film is just brilliant. I absolutely love the soundtrack. I have it on my iTunes, and if I was still doing music in my videos, in case you haven't noticed, I'd be playing some Into the Wild stuff. The film, of course, looks amazing. The Alaskan wilderness looks stunning. The snowy mountains. And also during the springtime, when he gets up there first, he starts off in the spring. It's very green and lush, lots of rivers and wildlife, and all the scenes in the desert, in the Californian desert, really great contrast to the stuff in Alaska. It's a stunning film in my opinion. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I think that's all I'm going to say on Into the Wild. From 2007, starring Emil Hirsch. and a great film directed by Sean Penn. Check it out if you haven't. You owe it to yourself because it's a very, very good film. So yeah, that is my pick for Journey Week. I hope you enjoyed this. It's probably a long video, but so be it. I want to talk about a really good film, and there you go. So thank you for watching as always, and until next time, I'll see ya.
Bom.